Indianapolis is going through, I like to say it's like the Harlem Renaissance back in the day. I mean, we're going through a metamorphosis right now in Indianapolis, especially when it comes to the creative scene, the entrepreneur scene.
For sure.
I mean, Indianapolis we've never seen anything like this in Indianapolis.
We're good? You all ready? You good? Ready? Good. All right, ready? All right. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Conversation Piece, the podcast about the missing pieces of the conversations we're having right here in Indianapolis. My name is Patrick Armstrong. I am your host, and I am so excited to be back here with you in 2025, the year of community. We have a bunch of stuff happening right now, specifically the Open Door Series, which was a major success. And we're also getting ready to announce another incredible initiative that we have coming out in February. So stay tuned for that announcement. Stay locked here, conversationpiecePod.com and at conversationpodpiece on all the social media. Wait, that's not true. At conversationpiecePod on all the social media platforms, wherever you are. Until then, I am very excited about our guest today. My guest today is an author, entrepreneur, veteran, speaker, community facilitator, and at the end of the day, a true man of the people. If you've been to an event in the city, you've probably seen him as a part of it or having provided access to it by bringing as many young Black folks as he can through those doors. Through his work in the community, he has become a staple in this city. And based on what I've heard and read, is solidifying his place as a true Naptown celebrity. I've got some questions, and I am very hyped for this conversation. So without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to welcome Brother Jamal Nelson to the show. Peace, brother. Thank you for being here.
Peace. Thank you, my man, not just for having me on the platform, but thank you for, the everything that you're doing for everybody else that has unique talents and abilities that are trying to do things to improve the overall quality of life of people here in Indianapolis. So, thank you and the production crew as well.
100%. Well, we appreciate it. Well, I won't speak for them. I appreciate it, but I will speak for them, and they appreciate it.
For sure.
Real quick, just for context for the audience, we first met because you actually came up and introduced yourself to me at Naptown Thrift during their 6th anniversary, and the visual oral release. Shout out to Jake Moran. And I just want to say that I was watching the show. I think TGI Free was performing, and you came tap me on the shoulder. I turned around. I did not know who you were, and you said some really, really nice things about me and the show. And then you were like, all right, gotta go. And I was like, okay, see ya. But it really was like, I remember that interaction because I was like, that was cool. I was like, who was that person? And it led me down a rabbit hole of figuring out who this dude was who came up to me and learning about Brother Jamal, what you've been doing, and having conversations with our good friend Murdoch. Learned that truly one of the brightest lights in the city right now. So I just want to give people context because the reason I wanted to have him on the show isn't just because of the work that he's already done and is doing, but because he went out of his way to introduce himself to me and hype us up when I had no idea who he was. So that's the type of person that we're dealing with here today.
Appreciate that, man. Wow.
100%. So I gave you a little bit of an introduction, but for folks who are listening or watching right now who don't know who you are, do you mind sharing just a little bit more about yourself?
Of course. My name is Jamal. I go by Brother Jamal, and that be Neighborhood Revolutionary. I'm most known for my Black culture and Black history board game that allows you to laugh and learn as you venture through both Black history and Black culture. I've also been fortunate enough to take the Black culture and Black history board game and create a trivia app that you can download on your phone for free. Because my board game is $50, but we're in an economic catastrophe right now. Recession and inflation, all that other stuff. So I was like, okay, what kind of product can I give to the people to where if they don't have the $50 for the board game, they can still get that information, inspiration, and have fun, be re-educated and entertained at the same time. So I made the trivia app. I'm also the first person in history to have the Black culture and Black history board game and the Black culture and Black history app that allows you to be re-educated and entertained. I have my novel, Fistful of Plight. I've connected with a mighty Black man named Brian Martin III. He's a 3D artist and animator. He's going to turn that into the visual adaptation of the animated series. So it's my novel, just the animated series version of it. We're scheduled to release that May of 2025. Took me 4 years, but I finally this year got my first program to an educational facility. We were just here at the stretch a few months ago. We brought the kids to the Border Art Fair. I was fortunate enough to connect with a mighty black woman from Women's Fund Indy to take the kids to go see Ruby Bridges. Not a book about her, not a video about her. We actually got to see her speak in person. A lot of different things, just exposing them to new alternatives, optimism, trying to get them to generate their new world-making abilities to not just improve the overall quality of life for the masses of black people, but liberate humanity as a whole.
I love it. Doing a lot. Have done a lot and currently doing a lot. And one of the things that I've seen recently is this like way that you lead young folks into the different spaces. I mentioned it in the intro, but I think that's something that's really stood out to me is how whenever I see like an event pop up, I feel like I see in your story somewhere you asking, how can I get in here and how can I bring a group of people to this? And I think it's so important because you are literally not just opening the door, you're kicking it down and leading folks into these spaces. And I think that leadership aspect is so interesting because I want to kind of go back a little bit. When I was watching the Naptown Narrative Season 3 documentary that you are the feature of, you talked about when you were growing up, you were initially predominantly black community, predominantly black school. You ended up moving to Fortville for reasons. And that shifted that entire thing on its head, where you were now in a predominantly white community, predominantly white school. You talked about confidence and a lack of self-confidence because of a number of things that were happening there. And it was something that I really resonated with. What I resonated with the most, though, was when you said, I didn't realize that was what was happening. Like microaggressions or racism in the way that it was being framed towards you from your new classmates now. I wanted to ask you, do you remember when you first realized something was off in that moment, and then and when you were able to tie that to a confidence piece?
That's a great question. I didn't really truly realize that, the things that they were, saying to me were just, completely and utterly off or wrong until probably when I hit about 7th or 8th grade, because now we had a little bit more black kids come into Mount Vernon. Because again, I started off going to, IP at School 79, Cold Spring. I went to Crooked Creek, all that. And then going to Mount Vernon, huge culture shock. It wasn't until probably about 7th, 8th grade, there were more, black kids coming to Mount Vernon. And the white classmates would say these things, and I would kind of, laugh with them and brush it off like, oh, that's nothing. But then the ones that, they're just coming from like probably a middle school or from Warren or LC or something. They're like, hey, man, what? Like, oh, man, they ready to knuckle up. They're ready to go at it.
Right.
And in my head, I'm like, man, what? I mean, it's just a joke, bro. Like, come on, man, we chilling. It's just a joke. So I'd probably say that was when I first realized, like, maybe something may be wrong. But it wasn't until I went to the military at 18, and I started reading Afrocentric and Black-focused books, literature, other works and materials for the first time, where I had a thorough reflection. I'm like, wow, that was kind of wild.
What spurred that decision to go into the Army? I know, referencing the documentary, I think it was your grandmother who was like, we were like telling Jamal, this is what it's going to be like if you go in there. And then one day you just came home and you're like, oh, yep, I signed the paperwork. I'm ready to go. I'm interested because I think about like this lack of confidence aspect of it. And I know that for young males, that is something that can be played on in terms of like getting people to sign up for stuff that maybe they don't want to do. I'm not saying that was your situation at all. I'm just saying, like, I remember being in situations where I felt similar pressure to do stuff that I felt like was maybe filling a hole that I was starting to understand was there, but didn't know. And for whatever reason, I decided to go another way because of my severe lack of confidence. But for you, like, what was that spur to be like, okay, I'm going to do this?
Well, to be honest, man, I mean, a lot of people, when I say, I'm 27, I was in the U.S. Army active duty as a 68 Juliet medical logistics specialist from ages 18 to 23. you know me, I'm pro-black. I'm all about empowering the disempowered people. I'm against, political castration, economic exploitation, social degradation, all the above. The revolutionary, like, man, brother Jamal, you used to be in the army, man. What? You selling out? I'm like, hey, man. It was during my transformative years,
Sure.
But at 18, man, I mean, I graduated high school with a 2.1 GPA, so I didn't really have too many options when it came to the, pursuing any further education in the collegiate route. So I'm seeing, man, everybody's got their, acceptance letters from their favorite college or university or preferred educational institution. Such and such over here is about to do a trade. I even had some buddies that had banks lined up. They knew what bank they wanted you to tap in with so they could flip a honey bun to a band. They out here scamming. Even though I don't condone scamming, it's like, man, at least they know what they going to do after high school.
Sure, it's like everybody's got like a purpose, it seems like, or found their way. Yeah, 100%.
But then there was me, man. I'm sitting there like, man, what the heck am I about to do? I can't stay on my grandmama couch, for my whole life. So the army crew was going up and down the hallways trying to reel people in. I'm talking to my buddies. I had a little lady at the time. Like, I was really, cracking jokes about it. I'm like, man, look at it. Look at his clothes. Look at his uniform. Man, I never do nothing like that, man. But then at the time, man, I was working at Steak and Shake. And I remember I had used the last of my check to buy some J's, and I ain't had no money. And I'm like, dang, I'm hungry. I ain't trying to eat that school lunch. Recruiter came through. He said, hey, man, I'm about to go take a few of the kids, man, to go get some food, trying to ride. I said, man, what? Yeah, come on with it. Long story short, he reeled me in, and I signed that contract. But the recruiters definitely prey on the ones that are, a little lost, the ones that are facing some type of financial or economic hardship or have a cycle of that in the family, and they lie a lot to get you in there.
Sure.
But that's how I found myself in there.
Well, that's that vulnerability is easy to press upon. And like, it seems, it's like, it just starts with a meal. It's like, oh, this dude's hungry. Like, okay, this is my in. And it's like, when you think about it, it's like, okay, it's kind of gross, that's like, okay, I'm going to use this person's hunger as a way to get him to now join something that maybe they don't fully understand at the time. Okay, so I know when you were in the Army, that's when you started to read, particularly Michelle Alexander, but a lot of like scholars, particularly Black liberation scholars.
Yes.
But it seems like you had a pretty strong sense of that identity before you got to the Army. Did you always have like that security within that particular part of your identity?
Man, you asked some good questions, man.
Thank you.
Wow. But I really didn't. Before the military, all I knew when it came to Black history, the African diaspora, or the international global Black plight was the basics, man. Martin Luther King got a dream. Harriet Tubman freed the slaves, and Rosa Parks rode the bus. That's all I knew at that time, man. It wasn't until about my second year in the military, you meet people from innumerable geographical locations in the service. That's one of the positive lights I can say about the U.S. Army. And I had a buddy named Jared Marshall, who's from Texas. And, 2K, NBA 2K.
Yeah.
Man, I was waxing him, man, whooping him. Man, I don't know. I'm not a betting man no more. I don't believe in squandering my hard-earned Black dollars over something foolish or futile as, a video game. But at the time, man, I was probably about $200-300. And, we was tight. Yeah. We was locked in. But you know how it is when you losing at the game sometimes. He got up and said, man, and he a big dude, too. I'm a little guy. He a big dude. He said, man, I'm tired of this, bro. Man, forget this game. I'm about to go read this new book I got. That's what you need to be doing anyway. Man, I said, all right, bro, you just mad. You just heated because I'm whooping you. You can see me that 200. We can do payments. You can break it up if you want to. I need that, need all that. But then the next day, I feel immensely remiss because I can't remember the brother's name, but it was another brother that got killed by the police because I was going through Twitter. I'm like, man, I know these things don't happen only to Black people.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, why do Black people, it's just coincidental or spontaneous epiphany. I'm like, dang, why is it that we got to go through all these hoops and hurdles just to get to a smidge ahead? Why is it that I see so much social degradation and chaos that afflicts our people? Why is it that we're always at the last of every major industry or major category concerning groups of people? So then I was like, you know what? And I was at a very depressed state. That's probably the lowest I've ever been in my life. And I'm like, I was like 19 because I joined at 18. So I was like, hey, man, I can't keep doing the same stuff and expecting different results, man. I said, man, I don't like reading books, but let me just try something different. I knocked on his barracks door. He lived right next door. The military barracks or living quarters is similar to college barracks if you're in college.
Sure. Yeah.
So I knocked on his door. I said, hey, man, what's the name of that book? He said the name. I said, hey, I ain't about to remember that, man. Just text it to me. He said, all right, bet. I gave him my car because he said you can go to any bookstore to get it. So I went to Walmart. I wasn't privy at the time to buying books. I called him and said, hey, bro, I'm at Walmart. I don't see it. He said, you where, bro? I said, I'm at Walmart, bro. What's that new book? The new Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration, The Age of Color. He said, yeah, bro, you can't get no book like that from Walmart. I said, where I go? Barnes & Nobles. I said, hey, cool. Do I go to Nobles first? Do I go to Barnes first? He said, bro, Barnes & Nobles is one store. I tried to play it off. I said, I knew that. I was just seeing if you was listening. I'll say less. I'm on my way. Fast forward, go to the store. I get the book, get to my barracks room, read the first 20 pages, and I shut the book, and I'm just sitting in the middle of my barracks room just staring at the ceiling. Because it was like, man, I feel like she's talking directly to me. Like I've never been given this, been exposed to this information with this delivery, with this level of degree of relatability. And it just, changed everything internally. And then externally, I started reading more books. And that led to my board game, my trivia app. I give lectures and speeches with the mighty black man himself, Murdoch now. My program took me 4 years, perseverance and fortitude, but I finally got my program in school now. And all my other unique products, services, and efforts just came from reading books. Because my highest level form of education is a high school diploma. But I just self-educated myself like Malcolm X, man. And, it changed the way I articulate myself, the way I not just see myself, but the world. All the above, man.
100%. Well, thank you for sharing that. Because the reason I ask is because I am currently reading the new Jim Crow. And it is like, I have been aware of some of these ideas over the last 4 years for sure, but just kind of like the way that Michelle Alexander crystallizes it for you and just like lays it out from a chronological standpoint, but with just like literal bits of history showing you specifically what I'm getting at, this idea of mass incarceration, which I think when you think about, like, as she articulates in the book, is about just bars, people behind bars. But it goes way further than that because it's really about what happens after you leave said bar. Yeah. You're still incarcerated because you carry the label of a felon, which puts you now at a lower class of citizenship than you would be had you not had this label prior.
For sure. I definitely like how you break down first of all, I am very ecstatic and just excited that you're reading that book. But yeah, she breaks down every racial, some people say caste system, it's really case system, but she breaks down every racial caste system that we've been subjected to as Black and African people in Northern America as we're going through the Black or African Holocaust. I mean, slavery it's not really a matter of morals and ethics, or racism isn't a matter of morals and ethics. It's really a matter of power. Yes. And, gaining from exploitation and labor. America can't be the world power it is without exploiting or subjugating or dominating Black and African people. I mean, after Malcolm X once said racism is like a Cadillac that come out with a new model every year. You had slavery, then you had black codes, Jim Crow, segregation, medical experimentation and malpractice, epigenetics, eugenics, the war on drugs, mass incarceration, menticide. We'd be here all day if I break down all of them.
So, I appreciate you even just like extrapolating a little bit further because...
I'm sorry, I don't know what that word means.
So just like...
extrapolate?
Extrapolate, like taking the concept and just like pulling it out a little bit for like taking it, like explaining it a little bit more deeply, like giving more, you just gave more examples of like beyond Jim Crow and it was like the different levels of oppression that have come because of not... like you said, a moral, ethical dilemma, but because of a lust for power and control. At the end of the day,
I thought I had words in my bag. You got some words on you, man.
I don't know. I don't know where I even first heard that word, but I always loved it. And so I appreciate that because I feel like that is something just at play in every conversation, in the back of my mind in every conversation I'm having, because I'm thinking about how so I'm adopted, and I think about the ways that different labels that we carry or identities or communities that we're a part of can, to the outside eye, shape the way that we think and treat and act with other people. And this idea of like this idea of this case, like the subcase of the subclass of people that's been created. I bring it up because I think the work that you do specifically instantly dispels that, but you also have to like not play within it, but you have to like get people to see that it exists in the first place in order to break it down. You talked about how you came across this book when you were like, weren't even into reading. And now you just recently posted about you have over 200 books in your collection now. Who are some other people and other specific like outside of New Jim Crow and Malcolm X, who I know is the number one
for sure,
100%.
Yeah.
Got him on the chest. Who else at that time was really helping to shape your ideas that you were now pulling out of, or that you were first exposed to in the New Jim Crow?
Man, well, yeah, like you said, the autobiography from Malcolm X, out of all the books I've ever read, is my ultimate favorite, my favorite human being of all time. But Malcolm X, Michelle Alexander, Dick Gregory, Toni Morrison, Huey P. Newton, Angela Davis, Kathleen Cleaver, Nikki Giovanni, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Ashada Shakur. There's so many. There's so many pivotal, notable Black figures, man. But I'll probably say off the top of my head, Carter G. Woodson. Off the top of my head, those are probably the core ones that were transformative.
I appreciate you sharing all that. Again, like I find myself like you talk about, in those moments at 19 when you're like discovering, like that's how I was at 30. And I'm just like, man, where the fuck was all of this information when I was growing up? Like, why did I not know about any of this stuff? And what I've come to find out is like, for me, a lot of it was like, it was there. It was just outside of the periphery of my rejection of my own identity, to where I was just missing some of the things that would have reshaped the framework of the way that I carried myself, the way I thought about myself and my identity. And so like when I hear about like a Nikki Giovanni, I'm like, I'm always just like, damn it. Like, why am I now catching up? Because I hate to come to people when they've passed, because it's like, it almost feels like a disservice to them and the work that they've done. Simply because, especially for a revolutionary, somebody who's doing work to spark revolutionary change, it's like we need to be tapping into that in the present.
Yes. Because
if we're waiting we shouldn't have to wait until somebody's gone to hear their voice. We should be hearing them in the moment. And I think we like to mythologize people after the fact. And it sucks, I think, frankly, because there's so much more for us to gain. Are we able to connect and collaborate now?
Definitely, man. First of all, you got a clean cut, too.
I literally just got this cut. Shout out Young's Barbershop up on 96th Street, 96th and Michigan
Young,
Road.
keep it going, man. He blessed you with them. Them clippers is blessed. You see that fade?
Old Korean Ajima.
Man.
Randomly found on, that's another story.
You got to put me on.
It's a solo episode earlier in January if you want to check that out.
You got to put me on that.
For sure.
Ajima?
Ajima. That's like a Korean auntie.
Oh, okay. But to be
Mike knows what I'm talking about.
But to be transparent with you, man, I mean, people think I know everything. I'd be the first person. Like I asked you earlier a few minutes ago, what was that term or word? Like you can't walk around act like you know everything. It's so much in the world I don't know, bro.
For sure.
I mean, so yeah, don't knock yourself, man. I mean, I learn new stuff every day as well, man. So
For sure.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Okay, so we're catching up to the present. I have one more thing before we get to the book and the board game and the app, because I feel like those all kind of came about pretty quickly, and I feel like I want to tap into that. But first, I heard you talk about, again, on the documentary, when you got back from your deployment, you were brought in by the FBI.
Yes.
Because of some stuff that you've been posting on social media.
Yeah.
And it was just stuff that you were just learning and sharing online.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you were just returned from the Army. You know, I get now, with hindsight from the documentary, like with some distance, I'm like, okay, that does make sense that they might be like, okay, that's somebody we have to watch because he's in the Army. But when I was listening to you tell the story, I'm like, it's because he was black? That's all I could think of. But I wanted to ask you, like, what is the impact for young Jamal at that time right after, especially as somebody who has been radicalizing themselves on a lot of this new literature, maybe not new literature, but a lot of these revolutionaries and this work, and coming back, I think, ready to step into that more fully. What does an instance like this do for Jamal at that time that then sets you on the path to Jamal of today?
Well, I'll be honest, man. Some folks they'll lie in front of the cameras and say, oh, yeah, man, I was in there on all 10, man. I ain't fold. Hey, man, I ain't fold. But I'd be lying if I say I wasn't scared, but I was nervous. Sweat going all down my back. I'm like, man, I ain't even did nothing. Like you said, I'm just taking what I learned from the books. And I'm trying to share. At the time, all I did was, if I'm reading a book, I would just tweet about it or post something on an Instagram story, because I didn't have any products and services. At that time, I was just reading the books. I'm like, oh, man, people need to know this information. It happened because I thought it was a prank call at first. I had applied for a few jobs because I'm like, man, I'm fresh out the military. You know, I got a few dollars saved up. Not a lot. I got something saved up for probably about a month or two, but I need to find me a job. So I had applied to all these jobs. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm expecting a call back from one of them for an interview or something. I get a call, and it ain't like in the movies to where it says, you know, oh, unknown number, or it's just blank, you know, being all, superfluous or dramatic.
Like mysterious type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't the dark voice or nothing. It was a regular phone call, 317 number, and it said Fishers, Indiana. I'm like, okay, this could be a job. And I answered, and I put my professional voice on. Say, hey, how you doing today? You know, at the workplace, you gotta switch it up, that professional tone. Say, I'm doing well, how are you? I say, yeah, I'm doing great. Appreciate your call. Can I ask you, this is reaching out to me? So this is Jason, he said Jason Johnson or Jason Jackson. It's like a basic generic name from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I was cooking something for my grandma at the time, so I kind of halfway heard it. So I'm like, oh, man, what is this? Who? Said Jason Johnson from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I said, well, what the heck? And I said, yeah, all right. Now I'm kind of playing around like, yeah, all right. I'm kind of, trying to catch his blood. I think he's playing. I think it's a prank call. And then he said, oh, no, we see you just got out the service. I'm like, bro, what? You just got out the service. And we see, you've made a few posts, and it's a little concerning, but we were wondering if you can, come in and we ask you a few questions. I said, nah, I'm all right. Right when I'm about to hang up the phone, because like, bro, even if you ain't did nothing wrong, somebody figure out you talk to the FBI, especially being black in Indianapolis, it might be some repercussions.
Yeah.
It may not be physical violence, but you may be ostracized.
100% reputational, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
then I'm about to hang up and say, hey, well, if you don't come in, we're going to come to, your home. At the time, I was living with my grandma because I'm fresh out the Army. I didn't have my apartment and stuff yet. I've applied to apartments. It takes a while to get approved and stuff. And I'm like, dang, I can't have them knocking on my grandmama's door. First of all, my grandma, she's older. She's elderly.
Yeah.
Then, neighbors and stuff seeing the FBI and stuff pull up. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, all right, man, where do I come? Like, where even is the FBI building? You know where Castle Square Mall is?
Yeah.
It's literally right. I had no idea. It's right behind Castle Square Mall. Had no idea. Then
That's
I was like,
classic FBI, like stereotypical FBI headquarters, just right behind the mall.
Right behind Castle Square Mall. It's a few trees, a roundabout right there. I couldn't believe it. So he said, you can just Google it. And I'm like, 16 minutes away. I'm thinking it's going to be, you got to drive your car. They're going to put a hood over your face, throw you in the back of a truck. I just pull right up, man, in parking lot. I go in. I've been in government federal buildings before, due to the military. It said, hey, you can't have your watch or your phone, nothing electronic. I said, oh, yeah, I know that. It said, no, you can't just, put it in your pocket. You can't bring it into the building. I'm like, oh, shoot. My plan was I was going to record everything. Dang, they got me. So then I get in there. They ask me questions, all this and that. Ask me what I meant by this tweet, what I mean by this Instagram post. Hey, what are these type of books you're reading? And they told me my second lieutenant from the military was concerned that I was a threat to civilians into society due to the materials, because they do barracks checks. Like in the military, they can come in whenever and check your living quarters. And they were doing, first of all, they weren't allowed to do barracks checks while I weren't there. So I found out to do barracks checks while I wasn't there when the FBI was asking me questions. But because he sent, I don't know how they do it, but he sent word to the state of Indiana law enforcement or something like that, and then that dinged, the FBI got it because they knew I was about to get out the Army soon. So they did that because I missed something. The ding also happened because I was buying a firearm.
Okay.
I was getting just something, just to protect myself. I hope I never have to use it.
Sure.
But that dinged, it dinged with the gun store because I don't have a criminal background. I've never even, been arrested before. So they asked me questions, And then they asked me, I've never been a part of Black Lives Matter protest organization or whatever, no matter how I feel about them. But they say, hey, we would love for you to, long story short, be an informant. And I kind of laughed and smiled, not in a disrespectful way, but like as a surprising way, because I'm like, wow, like everything I'm reading in these books is real. They were really asking me like, hey, we would just want you to just get some basic information, and that's it. We don't think they're violent or anything. We just, want the ins and outs on what's going on, just to, keep law and order together and the social well-being and stuff. And, I just basically was saying no. And a few minutes later, they just walked me out the building. I haven't heard from them since. But again, I haven't done anything violent. I'm doing a clothing drive this Saturday. I do book giveaways whenever, my second job, I get enough funds, I pay my bill, I got some money left over, me do a book giveaway. I just gave a student a camera. Literally 3 hours ago. I just donated a student a camera because somebody gave it to me. And I'm like, I don't do anything with cameras. I'm not doing anything violent. I'm not preaching anything of a demagogue or anything nefarious or evil or satanic. So I'm like, wow, this folks really out here causing physical harm to people. And y'all coming after me just because I'm sharing information and, calling out things that are afflicting people. I thought that was crazy.
It's interesting to think like you got like one of your pathway into the Army was because you were hungry and the guy was like, oh, hey, let me get you, I'm buying some people meals. Let's go, come ride with me. And then like when you get back from the Army, they bring you in and then like first you're in trouble, like they're trying to find trouble. And then when there's no trouble, they're like, okay, how can we use you to further what we are trying, like our own aims? Instead of just being like, oh, okay, you're good. It's like, no, how can we potentially push on a vulnerability that we think we see in a young black man and turn him on the community that he's going back into? Yeah. I think it's just interesting thematically how like narratives get spun and utilized to oppress or maybe not to oppress, but to press on vulnerabilities to put us in positions to do stuff we don't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can only assume this like instance where you're like affirmed in like, oh, you are doing the things that I've been reading about. You're doing those things. Like is like, okay, now that I've clearly had this very direct incident happen to me, like I can only continue to do the work that I want to be involved in. How does this all like, where does the book come out of this? Where does the game and the app and stuff, how does that all come out of like this instance and everything that you've been working towards to begin with?
It honestly, it made me more, a little bit more nervous, makes me more cautious. And, I just kind of pay attention more to my surroundings and everything, but it just assured me like, hey man, if they reaching out to me, that must mean, I'm destined to really help people. I need to really, go crazy. I need to keep going, man. Go crazy in a good way.
Doing something right.
Yeah.
It's like some people can get into that situation and be like, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But like for you, and like when I heard you tell the story the first time, I was like, oh, well, you must be doing something right. If the FBI is like, we got to call this guy and question him.
Yeah, man. Like I'm not doing nothing wild. So I'm like, okay, let me figure out a way where I can take the information I have and make products and services that are entertaining, nothing crazy, and also re-educational. Because I made my board game actually while I was in my third year in the military.
Okay.
COVID had happened, and we had to do a domestic deployment. We had to provide medical materials, items for the state of New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey. It was another state over. It's like those 5 states that are like I think it was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But we were over there before I went to Germany, and we was playing games, we was chilling. Some was shooting dice, some playing Monopoly, Face, Uno, whatever. At the time, I probably had like 7 books in my collection. I was playing Monopoly. My buddy had got done shooting dice. He was like, oh, let me play. He came over and knocked a few of my books over. He's like, dang, he picked one up. He said, I ain't mean to knock your books over. This book seemed cool. It was Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party.
Mm-hmm.
He said, man, this book hard, but I ain't about to read no book. So then I laughed it off. I'm like, dang, I'm looking at the book. I'm looking at this Monopoly game. I look at the book. I'm looking at this Monopoly game. I said, man, what if I made a black Monopoly? I don't got no degree, but I've read a few books. Why don't I just take what I learned from this book for the history cards? And then I'm a funny dude, so I can do the black culture cards so we can get the black culture, the funny stuff, music and all that other stuff. And after the FBI thing, that's when I was really like, man, they ain't about to stop what I'm doing. So I wrote that book. It came out last year, but I had been writing that book, man, since it was like 2018 after I had read about 2 or 3 books. I had just been working on it. I had dropped it, but at that time I didn't have a following, not just on social media, but in real life. I didn't really have any supporters like that. Actually, when I first started doing what I do now, I lost like 700 followers. I remember I had 2,700 followers. Most of them was from high school, popularity and stuff. But then I had 2,000 when I started doing my Brother Jamal community stuff. And then I dropped that book, and it didn't really do what I wanted to, so I pulled it back. So then I took it, changed a lot in it. It has the same, agenda and focus, but I changed a lot in it because I had read more books. So I was like, okay, I put more information in there. Even though it's a novel, it's realistic fiction. So then I finally reached the book last year, and I had so many great reviews. And I'm very excited for Brian Martin III, the mighty black man himself, to create the 3D or animated version of it. Because I tried with a different animator last year, learned a lot from that. Because that was like the test run. Yeah. So now with the new animator, I'm like, okay, I know what to do this time.
That's big time.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm rich in spirit, but I'm not rich in my pockets. So I appreciate everybody collaborating with me because I don't got it like that. So I appreciate everybody just collaborating and, working with me.
For sure. Well, I think that's like maybe a stereotype of community work is like, but maybe not a stereotype, but that there's not a lot of money involved in it. And you as an entrepreneur, like your entrepreneurial work is community work. Like your board game, your book, the app, the animated adaptation, all is in like furtherance of community. In addition to, hey, I need to sustain myself so I can continue to do this community work.
Yeah, man. Because I've never been allocated a grant I've had sponsors for events, but it's not like financial sponsors. Like, hey, here go 500, here go 2 bands. Nothing like that. So definitely all my products and services and efforts is just an extension of community service.
So let me ask you about that because you are, I feel like, pretty prolific when it comes to maybe not hosting events, but being a part of events. You took the group of girls to see Ruby Bridges, but you also just did an artist thing for Herman Whitfield.
Yes, sir.
And which I thought was really, really cool. Shout out to Wild Style. Hopefully you're getting recorded this for this month.
For sure.
Which I thought was really, really awesome. But like you just said, it's like you're not being showered with money at all times. How are
Not
you
at
able
all.
to like pull these things together and still do community focused events when like people are like, I get where's the budget? You know, like people have those questions. It's like,
Yeah.
how does Jamal pull all of this together?
Man, this is all about, I know I'm probably echoing the words of the mighty black man himself, Anthony Murdoch, but it's all about relationships, man. There's one time I did an event where I was able to give out a few dollars. But besides that, man, it's just people knowing that I have the best intent. I'm not doing this for clout. I'm not doing it to go viral on social media, man. I'm doing this to where I can give other people opportunities. Like, okay, you're being dismissed or underappreciated or overlooked. How about this? Let's come together, implement ethno aggregation, pull our unique talents, abilities, qualifications, skill sets, and resources, and let's do something grand with it. Let's do something blacktastic with it. That's how I've been doing it. For the first 8 months of this year, I was working 3 jobs. Now I work 2 jobs because I did pretty decent on my sales on my website. Everybody think I'm just trapping these board games. I'm selling hundreds of board games a month. Man, it's months where I don't make a single penny, and I'm relying on the funds I get from my 9 to 5s. It may be times where I get paid hourly. Like for Thanksgiving break, you know, I didn't make a lot of money at the job because Thanksgiving break, we were off.
Yeah.
But that's like, okay, I gotta go crazy with these board games because I gotta do something to supplement not getting paid because of Thanksgiving break. So then I said, you know what? My creativity is amazing, bro. I made the post. I was like, hey, I'm the first black person to have I'm not the first to have a black board game. There's been plenty of black board games. I'm the first to have the Black Culture and Black History board game and the trivia app. So I said, man, let me throw this together. That went viral. So then the sales on the website came up. And just working with people, bro, and just having genuine connections and intent with people. That's how I'm pulling it off. Because again, I ain't rich in my pockets. Man, I got this jacket.
It's a nice jacket.
From Goodwill, and I just customized it. Pants from a thrift. Shoes, Kohl's. Socks, I got the socks thing from Walmart. The headband, bro, I got it from like Target or something. It was like $10. My whole fit probably cost like $50, bro. That's it. I just use what I have readily and steadily available to me, and I make it happen.
Like you said, your creativity on 10, maybe 100 at all times.
Sure.
You could probably sell that jacket for well over $50.
Definitely.
And pay for maybe hundreds of outfits because the jacket is dope.
Appreciate it.
And I appreciate you sharing that because, 2025 year of community here on the show, I feel like, especially spinning out of this most recent election, but just thinking about the culture that we find ourselves in currently, I feel like we are so much more fear driven and we're so much more isolated. Despite being connected through the internet and through social media, we are connecting from our silos and we're not exiting out of those silos. We had Fitz on the end of last year, and he said that he's trying to figure out ways to build community offline. Like, how do I build community away from social media? And it's just like, that's something that's just been like ringing in my head. And I think that when I look at the work that you do and the work like Wild Style does, it's like that literal on the ground building of community where if the internet fell apart tomorrow, like your community's still going to be there. And that's what we want to continue or try to do here on the show. And that leads me to want to ask, we have a recurring segment on the show called Give Them Their Flowers, where we ask our guests to highlight or shout out one or whoever they want to shout out and highlight. So I want to ask you, Brother Jamal, is there anybody you think deserves their flowers right now that you like to highlight?
Man, it's so many, man. So many. I'm really trying to be very intentional because there's so many people doing great things but are sometimes overlooked. I'll shout out Ujama Bookstore. They have a lot of great literature, resources. The Flinter House in general. A lot of people don't know about the Flinter House, but they've been around for about a century and some change, doing great work. Anthony Murdoch is doing his thing. My brother Damon Hicks is doing his thing. Wild Style, Olivia West, Cozy Visuals. I ain't gonna say her government name. I think she rather people call her. Yeah, I'll say Cozy. Cozy Visuals. It's so many people, man. That are just doing great things. I think for people to truly know about these people, not just from my words, is to venture out. Don't just be on social media all the time. Don't just go to the big events that are on a grand spectacle in the city. Try to find, the more, not the smaller ones, but the more intimate ones. Because people say, oh, how you know all these people? Man, you know everybody know you. No, I just meet a lot of people because I go to all different type of events. I don't just go to the events that get 500 likes on social media, 1,000 likes. I go to an event that got 12 likes. I go to an event that has maybe 2 or 3 reposts. I'm like, okay, who's doing it? Let me check their page. Okay, they're consistent in what they do. Let me pull up. Okay, this is the main objectives, goals, and focus of it. That aligns with my philosophies and what I'm striving to do. Let me go ahead and pull up because it means a lot just to somebody to see your face, whether you're there for 1 hour or 1 second.
Right.
That means a lot. So I pull up when I'm able to. Sometimes, hey, maybe a week I ain't get paid. I might have had a gas. But, hey, I pull up with my tank looking nice.
I appreciate you saying that. And we were talking about that off mic before. But this idea of just showing up, even if it's for a moment, can have an impact that you might not never see. But can be the catalyst like your friend was in the armed forces after 2K, after you whooped him in 2K. And he was like, man, I'm going to read this book that you should be reading. And then that kind of spurs you on. It's just like, it's those moments, like those small moments that I think we take for granted. And I only say this because I have personal experience with overlooking those things and then realizing in hindsight, oh shit, that was really important. Like I can trace a direct line to specific moments in my life now that at the time I'm like, but it's especially true and impactful when those moments involve other people that you either look up to or that you want to have a relationship with that then have went out of their way to just say, hey, and just be visible or present in your life. Definitely. And that's something that you do. And when I was, doing the research and getting ready for this show, and I was telling people that you were getting ready to come on, not a single person had anything but glowing things to say. Or
for real, man,
if it wasn't just glowing, if it wasn't like, oh, I have time to talk about how cool Brother Jamal is, it was, Brother Jamal? Okay. And it was just like, it was just immense, immediate excitement.
Wow.
And it speaks to the impact that you've had on community, not just individuals, but now on a collective of people. And it reaches, further than just the one-offs that I think we can get hung up on or overlook.
That, wow. Well, I have 2 things. First of all, wow, I'm sure you can relate. I mean, sometimes, the stuff we do is like, oh, yeah, we do it. And people are like, oh, that's hard, man. Oh, my gosh, bro, thank you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no problem. I mean, it ain't really, why not? But then, like you said, when you reflect back and think, it's like, wow, no, I can't, take these minor achievements or accomplishments and overlook them or think they're minor. That's something big. So
for sure,
hearing all those people that you reached out to and asked about me, I'm like, wow, like, thank you. And thank you you did your homework, man. I've been on some, not just podcasts, but platforms. And, I'm answering the question, being respectful and stuff. But in the back of my head, I'm like, why would you ask that? Did you not even look up one thing about me? But yeah, thank you for doing that shows the passion that you have for what you do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I say this to every guest, but the guest makes it easy because you've done so many things. And for some people, there isn't like a ton of literature or maybe like articles or whatever about the person. But there are things if you, I mean, for me, mostly it's just like a simple Google can get me where I need to go.
Yeah.
But then it's like, can I pick up stuff from following them on social media? Like I want to build a relationship with a person that comes on the show. Like, I hope that this interaction is not the first and last time that we interact.
Oh,
you know
of
what
course
I mean?
it won't.
Not
It
just with
won't
us,
be
but just with anybody that comes on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think has been an unexpected thing for me has been some of the relationships for these guys that have come out of the show that I was like, when I started to do in-person stuff, I never thought be a thing that would happen. And so like, that's something, or not something that I was planning on, like, to expect.
Mm-hmm.
So just like operating in community is awesome. And, you know, and it's just like, if I'm going to do this, it's a disservice to the guest if I don't do a little bit of that work.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you saying that. As we get ready to wrap up here, I want to ask you just a couple more things. The first one is, what is so you, speaking of following on social media, you are currently looking for partnerships and more things to do with your program. Right now, can you tell us a little bit about what you have in store for early, mid 2025 and coming up, and what you're looking for from people out there right now?
You asked great questions, man. You need to be getting some brands and sponsors for this podcast. Man.
Hey, I'm trying. All those people I've messaged and emailed, looking at you.
For sure, man. But 2024, we went on a lot of field trips. We had a lot of great discussions and dialogue, exposing the kids to information and knowledge that they may not learn, not just in school, but in life. Some of the things I'm teaching them, the parents don't even know about. The parents email or call me, text me like, "Dang, I didn't know about this. You made me think different about that, man. What's the name? Such came home, man." I said, "What, you learned that at school?" Instilling them with that. We went to the Butter Art Fair. We saw Ruby Bridges in person. We went to the Pacers game. We went to the Naptown African American Theater Arts Collective play Judy's Life Work, which is actually the first Black equity program in the state of Indiana by Lakeisha Lorraine. We went to the Flannery House for Drama, so many places. In 2025, I want to do the same thing but amplify it. I don't want to just take kids from my program. I want to be able to take kids and the youth from across the city and exposing them to folks like you that, involve themselves in community work and do podcasting and media. Because people like Murdoch that does what he does, Olivia West, all these other people, because a lot of people don't get support for what they do. Not just because, oh, man, they hating, man. Oh, they just ain't trying to see me shine, man. Duh. A lot of people just don't know, man.
Sure.
A lot of people just do not know this person does it. I'm the first person ever to have a Black Culture, Black History board game in app. There are still people who just don't know.
Right.
They just don't know. So if I can get allocated some funding, I did all that last year for $0. I'm just now getting paid. This is my first time getting my program into an educational facility.
Yeah.
I'll get my first check next week. That's the first time I've ever been paid to do something like this in the community. I was doing it for free for 3 years. I came back in 2021. My last duty station was in Germany, in the Army. Did it for 3 years for free. I'm just now, did it for almost 4 years, just now, getting paid so I can further do what I do and get some funding for it. But I'm not just asking for more funding to, get more youth, but more people to say, hey, I do this, let's collab. I'm about to bring Deshaun Paradise McClan, a good brother of mine I met through Merck. He does yoga. I said, all right, bet. Boom. I want you to teach the kids yoga. I hit up Ryan from Omni Fitness. Like, hey, I want to do a field day for the kids, or Olympics for the kids.
I love that.
Boom. Let's bring him in. See, I'm ready to collab and network with anybody that's doing something special. So if y'all want to collab, let me know. I know everybody has a budget. I will do my best to get the fund. I'll do my best.
Maybe we bring the kids in and have them do a podcast.
That would be dope. I would love that. Show them media work, podcasting. I would love it.
They do most of the work, so.
For sure, man. But
that's dope.
Yeah.
I love it. And any way that we can support 100%, I want to do that, because I think what you're doing is really, really, really important. Particularly, I've mentioned it a lot, but just from an accessibility standpoint, like, you don't see a lot of people doing what you're doing, especially if they're not already backed by really large corporate funding. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, a lot of people aren't willing to take their own time and money and do something like what you're doing. And I think that is why it's so important, because we need more models like that to show people like, hey, if we're really going to make change, we got to put our money where our mouths are, and we got to put our feet in the streets
For sure.
to do that work. And that's what you're doing. So I appreciate that. Second to last question. We're looking at Indianapolis right now, and we're going to see a lot of changes, I think, happening, both from a civic perspective, but also just, I think, the way people are moving throughout the city and interacting with each other. And so as a community-focused, community-minded leader, what do you want to see more of from the city itself in 2025 and going forward?
In 2024, I saw a little bit more progression when it comes to collaboration and partnership. I would love to see even more of it in 2025 because, like, for example, if it's a Saturday, a lot of people that are doing events, it's like they'd be at the same time, same day. It's like, man, y'all doing the same event, different locations, different times. Why didn't y'all just come together and, come together on an event? It'd be, first of all, it'd be cheaper, more financially feasible. You'd be able to consolidate your energy, and it'll be have more of an impact on the people. I would love to see more collaboration and more patience as well, because Indianapolis is going through, I like to say, it's like the Harlem Renaissance back in the day. I mean, we're going through a metamorphosis right now in Indianapolis, especially when it comes to the creative scene, the entrepreneur scene.
For sure.
I mean, Indianapolis we've never seen anything like this in Indianapolis. When I was in high school, we looked up to the state. We had the state fair, the Black Expo. Well, it was kind of dying off at that time, even in high school. But we used to walk around the mall, bro, for fun. It wasn't nothing to do. Now in Indianapolis, it's something not just every weekend, every day you can get into something. So, it's new to us.
For
so
sure.
I said, people, be a little more patient with us. We still try to get it together. But that's probably what I'm looking forward to seeing. And more people not depending on the system. When you have the unique power and ability to do things for yourselves, like if you voted, that's great. But what do you do after you cast your ballot to improve things that may be afflicting you, your neighborhoods, community, and your people? You can't just depend on politicians. I mean, politicians. If politicians or delegates fixed and alleviate all the problems, which they have the power to do, they'd be out of a job. I'm just gonna leave that right there. But yeah, those are the three things I'm looking forward to.
You are not wrong.
Yeah.
And that first thing that you talked about, I had a very, very similar conversation with, I think, a mutual friend, Monty Matuka, when it comes to events on the same day. So we can talk about that at length soon. But
he's actually doing a clothing drive with me. Me, Monty, and Isaac this Saturday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, good brother.
Yeah, he's dope. Hopefully on the show sometime soon. We got a lot of stuff happening in 2025. Brother Jamal, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing everything that you shared. I feel like there are parts 2, 3, and 4 in here somewhere for sure.
For sure.
But not only that, the community work that you're doing. Can't wait to continue supporting you, but also hopefully figure out ways that we can collaborate and push that community work further and farther.
Definitely.
For the people out here who want to support you, follow you, find you, how do they do that?
You guys can find me at brotherjamalnelson.com. I'm legally changing my last name.
Okay. Time out. Pump the brakes back up. That was the other thing that I wanted to ask you, but I forgot to write it down on here.
For sure.
All right. Running it back real quick. Last thing I want to ask you before I ask the last question that we ask all of our guests. You are going through, or actually you have just recently had a hearing about changing your name legally.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about this because I loved what you wrote about it. So this is in February now that we're talking about this, but we're recording this in December. You wrote about the power of reclaiming something, or maybe staking claim to for the first time, but reclaiming something that was taken away from you, from your ancestors upon enslavement. Can you just speak a little bit more to this power of reclamation via specifically the name change?
I love how you worded that. It's actually my first time publicly, besides the post I made like 4 hours ago on Instagram, my first time actually.
Okay. It was very recent that you talked about it.
Yeah, very recent. This is my first time like actually, speaking about it. Like for example, my last name is Nelson. I didn't have the best relationship with my biological father when he passed 2 years ago, so that played a factor as well with my last name. But my last name is Nelson. When I Google the origin of my last name, there's nothing Black or African about it. It has no ties to people with my genetic coding, my shared experiences, no commonalities or, relatability, nothing like that. Nelson comes from a French origin. You watch football?
Yeah.
When you see a lot of, obviously I'm saying all Black people, but when you see a lot of wide receivers, Black wide receivers, Jackson, Johnson, Jones, Anderson, Smith, a lot of Black people have these last names. There's nothing coincidental. Back during chattel slavery or enslavement, I have over 200 books in my collection, right? Sometimes I'll take a Sharpie and I'll write my name on the book. I'll denote and say, hey, that's my property. This is my book. I write my name on it. I got my name on my jacket, Brother Jamal, because this is my jacket, my property. During enslavement, I had a friend in the military from Ghana. His last name was Pius Kofi Owusu. Let's say if Owusu was subjected to slavery, his last name is no longer Owusu. His last name would be changed to whatever the slave master's last name is. It could be, and the slave master's last names were Jackson, Johnson, Anderson, Jones, Smith. So it's like, man, you're already physically taking us away from our native lands. You've taken away our identity, our moral ways, social norms, customs, our religion, spiritual, everything that we know about ourselves. And now you're taking away the last thing that we have, which is our last names. So I just felt kind of like not a sellout, but I just felt like, I'm not really who I am if I keep this last name that was my forefathers or my four families' slave master. And
For sure.
if I'm all talking about liberation, I should, be the first or take that step to liberate myself in all aspects, ways, shape, or forms by not bearing a last name that, is anti-Black and doesn't, align with liberation.
I appreciate you sharing that, and thank you for humoring me by allowing me to rewind the tape and ask you that question because I directly resonated with it as an adopted person because not only did I receive an anglicized name upon my adoption, but the name that my Korean name is not even my family's name, my biological family's name. I don't know their name.
I know I'm not trying to go over time, but why is that?
It's because I was abandoned, or I wasn't abandoned, but I was left at an orphanage, and there was my biological parents didn't leave much identifying information, and also you're not allowed access to that unless the parent consents, and that's the whole thing.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened to you, by the way.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole thing. But anyways, I appreciate it because there has been a particular part of my journey that has dealt with name reclamation and what that means, and I've wrestled with, okay, is this name that I was given to me in Korea, is that part of my name? And I'm like, sometimes I don't feel like that. Sometimes I don't feel like a Patrick, but I do feel like a lot of a Patrick. And it's just like, it's interesting. And I appreciate you sharing that earlier in your post, because I was just like, man, I think that's a really courageous step to take. But also I think it speaks to this knowing of self that deeply resonates with me. So I appreciate you sharing that. And that's why I wanted to ask you, because I thought it was it's really incredible, but also something that just, resonates with me directly. Okay. Last but not least, for people out there watching, listening, if they want to find you, follow you, support you, how do they do that?
Yes, you can go to my website at brotherjamalnelson.com. I'm always going to keep it brotherjamalnelson.com. I'm not going to change it because it's on my board game and all my other products. So I'm going to keep it like that. brotherjamalnelson.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Mal317, or if you just search Brother Jamal, you can Google Brother Jamal and I'll come up. TikTok, Twitter, all the above. Google Brother Jamal, Jamaal, and I'll pop up.
Brother Jamal, thank you so much again for being here, for sharing, and I can't wait to see what you got going on this year, 2025.
Thank you for having me. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it. For everybody else, new episodes of this show every Tuesday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. ConversationPeacePod.com for merch stuff, all of the archives, and every other thing that we're doing on the show. At Conversation Peace Pod for all of the social media platforms that you might see or need to find us on. Other than that, if you're interested in sharing with the show, you can do so via the Open Door series. Go to the link in our bio to learn more about that. We have another initiative that we're launching this month in February, so keep it here, keep it locked in to learn more about that. Last but not least, shout out to the team, John Overton and Popular Rapture on the mics, Mike Lee and Mike Lee Productions on the cameras. Shout out to my guest, Brother Jamal. Shout out to the artist, Kenyon Mason, Kenny.art on Instagram for this beautiful work, these beautiful works that he's got here displayed. Find more about that in the show notes. I have been Patrick Armstrong, and this has been Conversation Piece, and until next time, we'll see y'all soon. Good? You all ready? You good? Ready? Good.